My name is Fariha Naqvi-Mohamed. I am a video journalist with City News Montreal. I'm an op-ed columnist with the Montreal Gazette, and I am the founder and chief blogger over at CanadianMomA.com, the #1 diversity blog in the country. My relationship between my identity and the Anti-Racist Project is intertwined. They are one and the same for me in terms of my experience with racism and discrimination growing up that influenced the work that I do today, and it shaped me into the woman that I am today. The topics I think are the most important to share right now in our current circumstances is the importance of standing up and showing up for one another. Showing up for causes that don't have to look like us or be what we, don't have to speak to our own personal reality, but showing up for those who are in need, those who need our voices to stand alongside their own. I think that is something that is my biggest takeaway of 2020 is to show up and stand as a proud ally of diverse communities. So passing the mic is something that I have advocated for many years, talking over a decade here. And it's something that I have been a huge ambassador for, is just letting people tell their own stories. I am blessed and I'm privileged to be able to do so in my current role as a video journalist for City News Montreal and the host of Diverse City, in which I get to go and tell those stories of diverse communities every week on City News Montreal. But showing up as an ally is something that we can all do. It's not something that you get to do if you're working in television, because it's too easy to say, well, I don't work in television, therefore I don't need to show up as an ally. The reality is that growing up, I was severely bullied. I was about 8 or 9 years old, coming off of my school bus. I had 2 pigtails and my pink backpack on my shoulders. And I was grabbed from behind by 2 brothers who also got off on the same bus stop as me. And they threw my backpack to the side and they shoved my face into the snow. And they held my face there for so long that it burnt. And then when I was crying and screaming for them to let me go, the tears that flowed down my face pierced into my skin. I've never forgotten that day. It was horrible. And why did they do that? They did it because they kept telling me how dirty my skin was, because it's brown. And it led to a lot of self-doubt as a child, and feeling ashamed of the fact that my skin is brown and being told every day that I must be dirty. And that was a horrible feeling. And it took me many years to come to peace with it. But I allowed that experience to remind me of the evilness that exists, but also that there is work to be done. And so as the years passed, I realized that yes, I faced that discrimination as being a brown girl and then a brown woman. But that discrimination morphed into Islamophobia when I put on the hijab at the age of 17 in CEGEP. And so I faced more racism and discrimination and Islamophobia. It was incessant, it was awful. And I realized that that was my struggle, that was my story. But it was also a struggle and a story that other people shared as well, due to the color of their skin, due to the way that their hair looked, due to what they wore on their heads, due to a number of factors. And I realized the importance of standing in solidarity with those who don't have to look like me, but who may look different or may be different. And embracing our differences and recognizing that our strength lies in our diversity. We are stronger not in spite of our differences, but because of them. And so over the years, whether I was speaking to someone from the Jewish community and recognizing their own trials and tribulations and the hate that they received, whether I was dealing with someone from the Black community and recognizing the awful realities and systemic racism that exists, or whether I was speaking to someone from the Sikh community who wears a turban, who is othered, who might be incredibly intelligent and kind and loving, but is discriminated on based on the way that they look and how they choose to dress. And something that became glaringly obvious to me is the need for us all to stand in solidarity with one another, to show up as allies. We don't have to show up for people who look exactly like us. But if we show up for people, it's even more powerful when we show up for people who look nothing like us. So when the assassination of George Floyd happened a few months back, and the world came tumbling to its knees, and the rise for accountability and the rise for the movement and the reality that Black Lives Matter came to the forefront, and I stood proudly as an ally of the Black community, I had some people turn to me and say, "Why are you weighing in on this? You're not Black." And I said to them, I said, I don't have to be Black to stand in solidarity with the Black community, but I do have to be human. And even saying that gives me goosebumps, because the reality is our voices are stronger together. So when we weigh in and we stand in solidarity, whether it's with the Black community and demanding rights for the Black community and stating that Black Lives Matter, whether it's with the Sikh and the Jewish and the Muslim communities against Bill 21 and standing against that systemic racism that's been etched into law, that's discriminating against individuals for the way that they look, we need to stand together. So we need to let go of this notion that you can only stand up and use your voice if it's with a matter or an issue that affects you. Because the reality is, it might not affect you today, but who's going to speak up when it affects you tomorrow? So I don't want people to stand as allies because, they might need to call in a favor in the future. That's not what it's about. It's about recognizing our humanity, recognizing that hate or discrimination or racism or systemic racism or Islamophobia or anything you want to call it, anti-Semitism, homophobia, that affects any of us, affects all of us. And that is why I so fiercely stand as an ally to all diverse communities, because I know what it was like to be discriminated against. I know what it was like to be hated for the color of my skin, for the way that I dress, for the way that I look, and to somehow be responsible for someone else's preconceived notions of who they think I am. There's so much that we can do. So, weighing in on social media is one aspect of it. So standing in solidarity, and I'm not talking about putting a black square on Instagram grid and using a hashtag. That's not what I'm talking about. Talking about amplifying voices from diverse communities, amplifying content from diverse activism online, but also recognizing its importance offline. So for example, if there is a discriminatory bill being passed, figure out what you can do to send in a letter to your local member of parliament, member of the National Assembly, your local mayors, city councilors, whoever the people in power are. It's a matter of speaking up in support of these communities that are being targeted. It's important now more than ever before. We need to get away from this idea that, well, we signed a petition online, therefore we're standing in solidarity. That's not what it's about. It's about showing up when it's not convenient to do so. It's about, I had the privilege of attending a rally against racism and discrimination this past weekend. It was actually geared towards the youth, which was so beautiful to see. And in listening to these children speak from diverse backgrounds about their own experiences with racism and discrimination made it so crystal clear to me how important it is to forego some comforts we might have. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if there is a rally, for example, if there is a protest, when safe to do so, if there is any sort of opportunity for us to show up for people who, whether they look like us or they don't look like us, but people who need our voices, it's a matter of stepping out of our comfort zone. It's a matter of foregoing the Netflix, chill session that night, or foregoing the comfort of our pajamas on the weekend, and standing up in solidarity for these people who need our support. By doing so, we become, not only are we strengthening their voices, but it enables us to become a stronger, better, more powerful, and inclusive version of our own selves.